Thiago Santos versus Glover Teixeira takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 13, Santos versus Teixeira, and I can't wait for this light heavyweight matchup. It feels like both of these guys are a little bit past their prime, but resurrection season is upon us. You've got Thiago Santos coming off a long layoff after a knee injury that he suffered in his fight with Jon Jones in the first round of his fight with Jon Jones as well, by the way. Still managed to make it a distance with Jon Jones in that fight, but still, Glover Teixeira coming off a big win in his career against Anthony Smith. Everyone remembers it mainly for the wrong reasons. I feel like if Glover Teixeira just went out there and beat Smith somehow by decision, no one would really be talking about that matchup, but he beat him so badly that it made nearly every headline for a month afterwards. It was craziness. Glover Teixeira put a real beating on Anthony Smith. Have we seen Anthony Smith maybe struggle against guys down the division, and maybe we, in hindsight, don't rate Anthony Smith as much as we once did before? Yes. However, Glover Teixeira's win over Anthony Smith still stands. It was a dominant performance, and he finished him, which Jon Jones couldn't do. So I guess that's a big thing as well, but it's resurrection season. Both of these guys aren't in their primes. 36 years of age for Thiago Santos, 41 years of age for Glover Teixeira. Two grandpas going at it in the light heavyweight division. I feel like we understood for the longest time this was a title elimination bout until Israel Adesanya announced that he is moving up to the light heavyweight division, or Dana White, announced that Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz is the fight they're trying to make next in the light heavyweight division, so that Israel Adesanya has a chance to get 2 belts and become champ. I love champs. I love people trying to take 2 belts. I just feel like there's a time for it, and right now it's kind of jumbled some things up, so maybe the winner of this fight will not be getting a title shot, even though Santos beats Blachowicz. And Teixeira, you can't deny him if he goes out there and beats Thiago Santos, because this is a terrible matchup for him. I can't think of a worse guy to put in there against Thiago Santos than a guy in Glover Teixeira who's been KO'd a couple of times in his career. Now, don't get me wrong, Thiago Santos has KO'd a lot of people as well, and been KO'd himself, which is something I do need to mention. Santos has been KO'd by the likes of David Branch, which isn't too good. Okay? But Thiago Santos, when he hits you on the chin, especially in this new light heavyweight division that he's found himself in, first of all, he seems to take shots way better and against bigger guys as well, which is never really the case. When you make the jump from middleweight to light heavyweight, yeah, you're not cutting as much weight, but you are taking on much bigger guys that have way more power. Weidman found that out the hard way. Rockhold found that out the hard way. But Thiago Santos, I feel like he was always meant to be in the light heavyweight division. Bulked himself up into the division as well. Doesn't cut as much weight anymore. He's actually going to be the same size as Glover Teixeira in there, I would assume. They're both 6'2". They both have the same dimensions, the same reach. But Thiago Santos, I'm sure we can all agree, is a little bit more devastating with those knockout punches. And I don't like this matchup for Teixeira. I understand that resurrection season could be upon us, and I understand that a lot of people are going to pick Teixeira here because they are riding the underdog train, and he could go out there and beat Thiago Santos. I think that there's a level of light heavyweight that's just above the rest of them, okay? And I think Anthony Smith is in the different level of light heavyweights, and maybe Ion Cutelaba now, after his loss to Ankleev, which doesn't look so good anymore, is a little bit lower down in our expectations at light heavyweight. And Carl Roberson, who's now got a career in jeopardy in the middleweight division after getting smashed by Marvin Vettori and missing weight, by the way. That looks a little bit worse in retrospect. So I do like Glover Teixeira's wins, but I want to pay attention to the Nikita Krylov fight, because that was a guy who was young, who was willing to go in there and do real well against him, who had a full training camp, defended a lot of takedowns, defended a lot of submission positions as well. And this is a guy in Nikita Krylov that's been submitted by guys in his UFC career before. He's not impartial to being submitted in the UFC. Got submitted by Ovin St. Preux, of course. Came back and avenged that loss, but still, he can be submitted, and he showed that if going out there against Teixeira, he can hold off some of the takedowns. Teixeira won the fight by split decision. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a bad decision. I thought it could have gone to Teixeira, but I also wouldn't mind if someone said it could have gone to Nikita Krylov. It was a real split decision, in my opinion. Glover Teixeira looked really good in that fight, but I saw in that fight a Krylov who can just have the fundamentals enough to stay out of bad situations, because when I look at the guys that Glover Teixeira has submitted, I see Carl Roberson and Ion Cutelaba recently. And when I see those names, I see Cutelaba, who gasses out in the later rounds and slipped in that fight against Glover Teixeira. Don't get me wrong, he was gassing out anyway, but he slipped on his back at the end. There was no official takedown for Glover Teixeira. Ion Cutelaba slipped flat on his back, winded himself, rolled right over, and Teixeira got right on top and straight to work with the rear naked choke. Carl Roberson came in on very short notice, upper weight class, tried to go balls to the wall against Teixeira, hurt Teixeira in that fight really badly in the first round, by the way, and almost finished him. Teixeira comes back against a gassed out guy who's just emptied the gas tank against him. Gets a submission win. I don't see Thiago Santos here with a full camp gassing out at any point, because we've seen him in there against John Jones on one leg for 5 rounds, and we've seen him in there against Jan Blachowicz and going hard with Jan Blachowicz in the first round, outlanded him massively in the first round, by the way. I'll just check it right now, but still officially KO'd him in the 3rd round. But in that first round, strikes landed 22-7 in favor of Thiago Santos. And Jan Blachowicz, I mean, look what he just did to Dominic Reyes. I know whose wins I credit more. I do like the narrative that people are going with here of the resurrection, because I'm all aboard a resurrection train whenever there is one. However, this one I will be watching past the station. I feel like Glover Teixeira is a little bit too old, and this matchup just isn't good for him in my opinion. Santos has got great takedown defense. He's brute strong in the clinch. He's been in a clinch with tough guys. Jan Blachowicz has tried to take him down in their fight in the first round and failed miserably, because Santos has great takedown defense. I know his knee injury is a factor that a lot of people are betting on for him to lose, but I will tell you this. This isn't like a knee injury we don't know anything about, okay? We saw him have this knee injury in the cage, then we watched him go 4 rounds with John Jones with that knee injury. I don't mind his chances after a long time off rehabbing it, and now I've seen him on Instagram doing a couple spinning kicks here and there. Seems like he's back to full effect, but still, we saw him go 4 rounds with John Jones on that very same injury. It's only going to be better since then. You know what I mean? So I don't see that one coming into play. I do see Glover Teixeira maybe trying to chop at the legs a little bit, but I just think the power of Thiago Santos in the first round, his style is to get lost in a brawl. That really is Thiago Santos' style. If he's really out there techniquing with guys, like, yeah, he can do quite well. But in the Jimmy Manuwa fight, as well in the Jan Blachowicz fight, he's very patient when shots are being thrown. And he can get in a brawl and come out on top of it because he's Thiago Santos. I think he'll get the job done against Teixeira by doing that. I don't see Teixeira looking to brawl with him in the first round, but I do see Teixeira maybe being down on strikes by Thiago Santos, kicking him a couple times, jabbing him a couple times, landing some good shots. Then I see Glover Teixeira looking to close the distance, and I think Thiago Santos is going to catch him coming forward, trying to pressure him against the cage. Teixeira is going to be looking to get this against the cage, clinch up with Thiago Santos in the first round, but we saw in the Jimmy Manuwa fight, it's not easy to control Santos in the clinch. He only needs a couple of seconds of break before he explodes again and escapes the clinch and lands big shots in the clinch as well, by the way. I could see this going one of 2 ways. Either Glover Teixeira goes out there, tries to close the distance and land some good shots and gets clipped on the chin coming forward, or Glover Teixeira is in the clinch with Thiago Santos, they break and Santos cracks him with an elbow or a big shot in the clinch or an uppercut, which he likes to throw as well, and then finishes him against the cage. I know that Glover Teixeira has a good chin. He's still 41 years of age. Time comes for all. And I know he did have a good win against Anthony Smith, but Anthony Smith, I think we can all agree, has just been shelling up like a bitch in a lot of his fights recently. We saw that against Alexander Rakic after a couple of leg kicks. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they were hard leg kicks by Rakic, but Smith curled up in a ball and just acted like there was a home intruder in it. Like, it was so weird. It was so weird to see Smith do that. But at the same time, Teixeira had an amazing performance. Not taking anything away from him. I just don't think he's going to be beating Thiago Santos, okay? Because when I look at some of the guys that are beating Glover Teixeira, I try and think about what they have in common. You see Ion Cutelaba, who he was able to beat. Carl Roberson, who he was able to beat. Both guys, Carl Roberson took it on short notice. Ion Cutelaba has natural problems with his gas tank, and he was a young guy back then. Not back then, it was only 2019, but still very young in his career. Hadn't really been shown the holes in his games too many times to really address them, but still won the fight against Nikita Krylov. Great win by split decision. Razor close. I think if you can't beat Krylov by unanimous decision, I don't see you beating Thiago Santos, period. Because that's where I think he stacks up in that division. I think that Thiago Santos would do good against Reyes. I think he'd do good against a lot of guys. And I also believe is that Santos has had a real unfair situation in a lot of his fights by taking on bigger guys, and Glover Teixeira might be a happy rest day for him because he's the same size, same reach. He doesn't have to reach over the top of everything that Jones is throwing and blitz himself into the fire to try and get a shot off on Jones, who's got a massive reach advantage over him. He can go out there against a guy similarly sized, and when that happens, he Jimmy Manowars them. And I'm not saying that Teixeira has the same chin as Jimmy Manoa, but still, Corey Anderson went out there and worked a clinic on Glover Teixeira in terms of takedowns. That level of grappling has been shown not to work on Jan Blachowicz, okay? There's a certain level of the light heavyweight division, and I think that Anthony Smith, I've said this for the longest time, will get someone in the top 5, but I've never considered Anthony Smith a good fighter whatsoever. I did pick him in some fights that maybe he should have... I picked him against Teixeira, so I can't really say anything because Teixeira went out there and beat him, but still... I've always said if you're going to pick a guy in the top 5 to try and go out there and beat, it's Anthony Smith. He's the worst out of all of them. Thiago Santos finished him as well, and I feel like Thiago Santos now, since moving up from the 170-pound division, now to the 185-pound division, now to 205, really has settled in. He'll come back as a good 205er, get back in there and make a statement against Teixeira by finishing him in the first round at the end of the first round. I don't see him going out there and throwing a bunch of straight shots like Smith and trying to look for too technical of a finish. I see him going in there, throwing a bunch of feints, getting in a brawl with Glover Teixeira and coming out on top while Teixeira rushes forward. I'm going to go with Thiago Santos, first round KO, and if he does win this one, it's interesting because we don't know what to do right now. So maybe he'll take on the winner of Reyes versus Jiri Prochaska, because I'll be honest, it's kind of annoying that Adesanya versus Blachowicz is happening, because if Teixeira wins, I don't like the fact that they would want him to do one more. If Teixeira wins, he's earned a title shot at this point in his career. Can we agree on that at least? If Santos wins, I get it because he's on a one-fight win streak. Even Whittaker's not getting a title shot right now because of this whole Adesanya Blachowicz situation, and he's on a 2-fight win streak. But still, if Santos wins, he's probably going to have to take on the winner of Reyes versus Prochaska, which I am all for. But I just believe that in future times, if I was in charge of the UFC... in future, can we please write this on the contracts? It's just a little line at the bottom, and an extra sentence for your lawyers. Sorry, not your lawlers. Robbie Lawler doesn't handle everyone's contracts, but still, lawyers to look over. Just adding a little line at the bottom saying, when you take a belt in another division, because we had this problem with McGregor as well, and I'm willing to admit that. There was a big problem with McGregor holding up the division. If you take a belt in another weight class, you are obliged to defend it once. And I'll be happy. I'll be so happy. And hey, Izzy, if you do beat Jan Blachowicz, okay, and now Thiago Santos beats Glover Teixeira, how about you beat Thiago Santos, who went to a split decision with John Jones on one leg, in more dominant fashion than John Jones, and that will sell your fight with John Jones even more, maybe. Who knows? But I'm going to be going with Thiago Santos by TKO in the first round. I just don't see it not happening. Santos is too dangerous with the hands, in my opinion. Too wild, too crazy. And awkward angles, which a lot of guys aren't used to. And Glover Teixeira, who's a technician of the game, a veteran of the game, who's seen a lot of things, sometimes a little bit of a wildness, can bring out some holes in your defense. So I'm going to go with Santos TKO in the first round. Click that button up there. Goodbye. Toodle pip.